This video is sponsored by Focusrite. It's 2023 and you're still thinking about starting a podcast? Now is the time, my friend. My goal by the end of this video is that you will have a definitive plan for finally starting your podcast this year. If you're still on the fence, let me tell you this. Podcasting is one of the best ways to build a loyal audience who is interested in buying from you. Second only to my YouTube channel, which has a much larger audience, my podcast is the #1 driver of new clients to my creative agency, Creatorly Media. If you're an online business owner, a coach or a consultant, or even just a content creator, a podcast is the perfect way to establish your expertise and build that relationship with your audience and start making money online. And for a lot of people, it can feel less intimidating and more accessible than starting a YouTube channel, though it can also pair really well with a YouTube channel if you already have that as a part of your strategy. Okay, if you're not convinced by now, you've probably already clicked away from the video, so let's get into the exact tips for starting your podcast this year. Your podcast needs to have a purpose. No one is gonna listen to yet another rambly, directionless interview series, unless you're like already a really big influencer. So the first step is to figure out what value you're gonna be offering your listener in your podcast episodes. Maybe that's encouraging stories or reporting on the latest trends or updates in your industry. Maybe it's analysis of your favorite reality TV show or education on a topic you're an expert in. Remember, offering value doesn't have to mean teaching something. There's so many different ways to do that. Just make sure you're clear on how you're gonna do that. So determine that value add and then come up with a title that really communicates that clearly to potential listeners. So for example, my podcast is called Creator Club because my target audience is content creators, and I want to cultivate a community-like atmosphere where everybody is welcome at the table no matter how many followers or subscribers they have. And my goal is to share my experience and expertise around becoming a full-time content creator and online entrepreneur. Once you have your elevator pitch in mind, from there you can start to develop branding, like your cover art, for example, write a description for your show, and finalize what that title should be. Here's my secret to finding the perfect podcast title. I like to recommend that you pair a short and memorable and preferably easy to spell name with a longer, more descriptive sort of subtitle, but you're gonna ultimately mash it all together in like the title field of your podcast. But for example, my show is called Creator Club. That's something that's easy to remember, easy to type in search. And then after that, I have one of those vertical lines, and then it just says social media marketing and content creation. So that will help your audience remember the name of your show. If you tell somebody about it in person, they can easily look it up later, but having that additional descriptive subtitle will indicate what your show is about to people who stumble across it, and also will allow it to show up in search results. I know a lot of people find my podcast by just searching content creation in the Apple Podcast app. Once you have your creative direction figured out, of course, you'll want to start writing your outlines or scripts or scheduling your interviews, and then it's time to record. I personally love recording my podcast with Focusrite's Vocaster 1. It's a beautiful and user-friendly interface that you can just plug directly into your laptop, and it's completely designed with podcasters in mind. So let me show you how it works. You just need to get your Vocaster 1 out and plug it into your laptop via USB-C. Then you can plug in the studio quality microphone and your headphones into the Vocaster 1. Then on your laptop, you can open up the Vocaster Studio app plus your recorder of choice, whether that's QuickTime, Audacity, Adobe Audition, and press record. You can get the audio levels just right by using the auto gain button. You just press the button and then speak at your normal volume for a few seconds, and the Vocaster will determine what gain level will be perfect to make your audio sound great. And the audio quality on this thing is amazing. Okay, what you're hearing right now is the audio coming through my vlogging camera, and now what you're hearing is the audio quality of the Vocaster 1. I am seriously impressed by it. It sounds like I'm in a professional studio. I think this is one of the best tools for podcasters because you can get studio quality audio on this without having to have a lot of technical expertise. So it's great for beginners or intermediates who are looking for expert level results. You can see all of the details and get a Vocaster 1 for yourself at the link in my description, and thanks again to Focusrite for sponsoring today's video. Once you have that audio file recorded, it's time to edit. There are honestly countless options for editing your podcast, but I wanted to offer you two. One free and one more premium. So your free option is editing in Audacity. You can easily import your audio track, bring in intro and outro music, and drag your clips throughout the timeline to get them to the exact right spot. If you want to see an in-depth walkthrough of how you can create your own intro and outro in this free editing software, I actually already have a video about that, so I'll link it up here. The paid option that I would recommend, especially if you already are an Adobe user and you're in the Adobe Creative Suite, is to use Audition. Audition works pretty similarly. It's also a timeline. However, there there are a lot more in-depth features here that you can use to repair any noise or echoing or just kind of make your audio sound better in general. But if you record it on a high quality microphone, chances are you aren't going to have a lot of audio cleanup to do. I don't do a lot of that stuff on my podcast because it just sounds great right out of the microphone. But if you think that you might need to do that kind of thing, or you want to try getting into more complex audio editing, then you can try Adobe Audition. Once your episodes are edited and ready, it's finally time to get them where people can actually listen to them. Historically, launching or like publishing your podcast has been the biggest challenge for beginner podcasters because podcasts still work on this very like archaic version of the internet called RSS feeds. And years ago, it used to be like really difficult to, publish your own RSS feed as somebody that didn't have a lot of technical skills. But thankfully now, there's a lot of different ways to do this that make it a lot easier for beginners. What I'm gonna recommend to you, especially if you're kind of scared of like more technical stuff, is to use Anchor. Anchor is this really great service. It's owned by Spotify, but it'll allow you to publish your podcast on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, like all the different places. And it really guides you through that process step by step. And it's free. I personally host my podcast on Squarespace, and I think this is an equally good option, especially if you're already a proficient Squarespace user, if your website's on there. But there's also nothing wrong with Anchor. So this is really a preference thing. It all just depends on how you would like to do it and what level of technicality you're comfortable with. If you want to learn more about how to launch a podcast, especially strategies for getting people to actually press play and listen and subscribe, then you're going to want to check out these videos next. And of course, make sure you also check out the link in the description if you're curious about Focusrite's Vocaster 1. I really think it's a perfect setup for podcasters who want to have really crisp audio. So as always, thank you so much for watching. Best of luck with your podcast this year. I know you can do it, and I know you are not going to regret finally getting started. And as always, I hope you're having adventures and following your dreams, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.